Welcome, my friend. The storm rages outside, but here, in the quiet of this story, I invite you to find peace. Let the sound of the rain and the distant thunder guide you as you drift into a place of calm. This story is my gift to you, a gentle companion for a night of restful sleep. Relax, let go of the day, and let the story carry you into dreams. I never thought I'd step foot in my old high school again. Not after graduation, and definitely not after it closed down. But here I was, standing in front of the crumbling building, flashlight in hand, ready to break in. My name's Alex. I'm 24 now. But back in the day, I was just another kid trying to survive high school. The place closed down 5 years ago due to budget cuts, and it's been sitting empty ever since. But tonight, I'm not here for nostalgia. I'm here because of the rumors. You see, my old high school has a basement, and not just any basement, a place so off limits that even the teachers wouldn't talk about it. Rumor was something bad happened down there years ago. Something so bad that the school board sealed it off and pretended it didn't exist. But I've always been curious, too curious, according to my friends. So when I heard the school was going to be demolished next month, I knew I had to see it for myself. I climbed through a broken window in the back of the building, the glass crunching under my boots. The air inside was thick with dust, and the smell of mildew hit me like a wall. I love the sound of thunder. Okay, go on. Home sweet home, I muttered, shining my flashlight down the empty hallway. The school looked like a ghost town. Lockers hung open, papers littered the floor, and the walls were covered in graffiti. It was eerie, but not as eerie as what I was about to find. I made my way to the basement door, which was tucked away in a corner of the school. It was heavy and metal, with a sign that read "Authorized Personnel Only." The lock was rusted, so it didn't take much to break it. I pushed the door open, and a wave of cold air hit me. The stairs leading down were steep and narrow, the walls lined with peeling paint. I shone my flashlight down the steps, but the beam barely reached the bottom. "Here goes nothing," I said, starting down the stairs. The basement was huge, much bigger than I expected. It was filled with old desks, broken chairs, and boxes of textbooks. But what caught my eye was the door at the far end of the room. It was small, almost like a closet door, but it had a heavy padlock on it. "What the hell?" I muttered, walking over to it. I tried the padlock, but it was solid. Whatever was behind that door, someone didn't want anyone seeing it. That's when I heard the noise, a faint scratching, like nails on wood, coming from behind the door. "Hello," I called out, my voice trembling. The scratching stopped. I waited, holding my breath. "Okay, how is the thunder?" "Love it. Let's go." But there was no response, just silence. I was about to leave when I heard it, a faint whisper coming from behind the door. "Help me." I froze, my flashlight trembling in my hand. The whisper was faint but unmistakable. It was coming from behind the door. "Hello," I called out again, my voice shaking. "Is someone there?" No answer, just the sound of my own breathing and the faint creak of the old building settling. I stepped closer to the door, my heart pounding. The padlock was heavy and rusted, but I wasn't about to give up now. I grabbed a crowbar from one of the nearby boxes and wedged it into the lock. It took a few tries, but finally the lock snapped. The door creaked open, revealing a narrow staircase leading even further down. "Of course," I muttered. "A basement in the basement. Why not?" I shone my flashlight down the stairs, but the beam barely reached the bottom. The air was colder here, and the smell of damp earth filled my nostrils. I started down the stairs, each step creaking under my weight. The whispering started again, louder this time, like it was urging me to keep going. "Help me." At the bottom of the stairs was a small room, barely big enough to stand in. The walls were covered in strange symbols, carved into the stone. They looked ancient, like something out of a horror movie. And in the center of the room was a chair. It was old and wooden, with straps hanging from the arms and legs. The sight of it made my stomach turn. What the hell is this place? I whispered, shining my flashlight around the room. That's when I saw it. A journal lying on the floor, next to the chair. It was old and weathered, the pages yellowed with age. I picked it up and flipped through it, my hands shaking. The pages were filled with handwritten notes, detailing experiments conducted on students. The last entry was dated 1978, and it ended with a single sentence: "We've created something we can't control." I dropped the journal, my heart racing. This can't be real, I muttered. But then I heard it again, the whisper, "Help me." It was coming from the corner of the room. I shone my flashlight over, and my blood ran cold. There was a figure standing there, barely visible in the darkness. It was tall and thin, its face obscured by shadows, but I could see its eyes, two pinpricks of light, glowing faintly. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice trembling. The figure didn't answer. It just tilted its head, like it was studying me. I took a step back, and the figure took a step forward. "Nope, nope, nope, nope," I muttered, turning and running up the stairs. The whispering followed me, growing louder and more insistent. "Help me." I didn't stop running until I was out of the school, the cold night air hitting me like a slap in the face. I looked back at the building, my heart pounding. The whispering had stopped, but I knew it wasn't over. Whatever was down there, it wasn't human. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat in my apartment, staring at the journal I'd taken from the basement. The pages were filled with horrifying details, experiments on students, secret meetings, and warnings about something called Subject 13. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't just ignore it, but I also couldn't go back there alone. So I did the only thing I could think of. I called the police. The next morning, 2 officers showed up at my apartment. One was a middle-aged man with a no-nonsense attitude, and the other was a younger woman, who looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. "So let me get this straight," the older officer said, flipping through the journal. "You broke into an abandoned school, found a secret basement, and now you think there's some kind of experiment down there." "I know how it sounds," I said, my voice shaking, "but I'm telling you, there's something down there, something bad." The younger officer raised an eyebrow. "And you didn't think to call us asterisk before asterisk you broke in?" I didn't have an answer for that. The officers exchanged a look. Then the older one sighed. "All right, we'll check it out. But if this is some kind of prank, you're gonna regret it." We drove to the school in silence, the tension thick in the air. When we got there, the officers followed me to the basement door, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. "This is it," I said, pointing to the door. The older officer tried the handle, but it was locked. "You got the key?" he asked, turning to me. I shook my head. "I broke the lock last night." He sighed and pulled out a crowbar, wedging it into the door. It took a few tries, but finally the door creaked open. The officers went down first, their guns drawn. I followed close behind, my heart pounding in my chest. The basement was just as I'd left it, dark, damp, and filled with old furniture. But the door to the second basement was open. "What's down there?" the younger officer asked, shining her flashlight down the stairs. "That's where I found the journal," I said, my voice trembling. The officers exchanged another look, then started down the stairs. I followed, my hands shaking as I gripped my flashlight. At the bottom of the stairs was the small room, with the symbols on the walls. The chair was still there, the straps hanging loosely. "What the hell is this?" the older officer muttered, shining his flashlight around the room. That's when we heard it. The whisper, "Help me." The younger officer spun around, her gun raised. "Who's there?" she called out, her voice shaking. No answer, just the sound of footsteps, slow and deliberate, coming from the corner of the room. The officers shone their flashlights over, and my blood ran cold. The figure was there, just like before, tall and thin, its face obscured by shadows. But this time it wasn't alone. There were others, dozens of them, standing in the darkness, their eyes glowing faintly. "What the hell is this?" the older officer whispered, his voice trembling. The figures started moving toward us, their footsteps echoing in the small room. "We need to get out of here," the younger officer said, backing toward the stairs. But it was too late. The door slammed shut, trapping us inside. The door slammed shut, and the room was plunged into darkness. The only light came from the officers' flashlights, which flickered weakly as they swung them around the room. What the hell is going on? The older officer shouted, his voice trembling. The figures were closing in, their glowing eyes fixed on us. They moved slowly, deliberately, like they had all the time in the world. We need to get out of here, the younger officer yelled, her voice cracking. I grabbed the crowbar from the floor and swung it at the nearest figure. It connected with a sickening thud, but the figure didn't even flinch. That's not going to work, I shouted, backing away. The officers fired their guns, the sound deafening in the small room. The bullets hit the figures, but they just kept coming. What are these things? The older officer yelled, his voice filled with panic. I don't know, I shouted, my mind racing. But we need to find another way out. That's when I noticed it. A small door, hidden in the corner of the room. It was almost invisible, blending into the wall. Over there, I yelled, pointing to the door. We ran toward it, the figures closing in behind us. The door was locked, but I wedged the crowbar into the crack and pulled with all my strength. It opened with a loud creak, revealing a narrow tunnel. Go, 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 the older officer shouted, pushing us inside. We ran down the tunnel, the figures close behind. The air was thick with dust, and the walls were lined with more of those strange symbols. Finally, we reached the end of the tunnel. It opened into a large room, filled with old equipment, and more of those chairs with the straps. But what caught my eye was the journal lying on the floor. It was open to a page with a single sentence written in bold letters. Subject 13 cannot be contained. What the hell is that? The younger officer asked, her voice trembling. Before I could answer, the figures burst into the room, their glowing eyes fixed on us. We need to get out of here, I shouted, grabbing the journal. We ran toward the far end of the room, where a ladder led up to a hatch. The older officer climbed up first, pushing the hatch open. Come on, he yelled, reaching down to help us. We climbed out, the figures close behind. The hatch led to the school's boiler room, and we didn't stop running until we were outside, the cold night air hitting us like a slap in the face. The officers called for backup, but by the time they arrived, the figures were gone. The basement was empty, like nothing had ever happened. But I knew the truth. I don't know what those things were. I don't know what happened in that basement. But I do know this. Some secrets are better left buried. So if you ever come across an old building with a dark past, keep walking. Trust me, you don't want to know what's inside.